Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, sorry I'm a couple of minutes late here. Shut down my computer earlier and it did an update. So I'm hoping everything runs all right. Okay, and when I started it back up, then it had to go through some kind of bullshit. It doesn't make things better, it just makes things different, and then you just have to relearn it. So, whatever. Anyway, I've got some good information for you tonight. Uh, you don't need to hear about that really. Let's hear about some real stuff. Let me click over here to my Rumble channel, Murtech on Rumble. And here we go, episode 1979 is my live stream. Let's go ahead and get into that. Let me pause episode. Looks like Debbie BS and Viper Senior has joined us already. And yeah, okay, I've got 41 chats, 41 unique chats. I need 75. I need 35 more. Here we are on the 15th of July in the year of our Lord 2026. So if you can, if you know anybody else that's watching, tell them to give me a chat so we can get my requirements made for Rumble. Everybody wants something, I'll tell you. All right, let's slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. Dan Bongino tonight, Black Conservative Perspective, USA Watchdog with Greg Hunter and Dinesh D'Souza. Wendy Bell Radio. So we've got a good show planned for you tonight. But before we get into that, looks like GP Wolco01 has given me a comment already. Hello all. Number 2 Rumble. There you go. Shared to Facebook and X. Thank you very much, Glow. I appreciate that. Oh, I'm voting too often. My goodness. There we go. Okay, let's give some shout outs here to Shosh Hannah Rose 3 just started following my channel. Lady Lamore Rowe just started following my channel. I guess that's kind of like Bordeaux. She must be French. Anyway, Nancy Henderson just started following my channel. WK Ringlaw just started following my channel. Snake Bit 2 just started following my channel. And Molly Bell just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I appreciate your support, and I hope you're tuned in and enjoy the content. And if you are tuned in, give me a chat, okay? All right, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1978. Steph Feng 101 and GP Wolco01 gave me a comment on my daily news wrap up. GP Wolco01, that's Glow, commented on episode 1979. Debbie BS and Viper Senior commented on my episode 1978. Debbie BS commented on my extra 760C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 761A. Cotton Ball, Steph Fang 101 commented on my extra 161B. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. All right, let me give that a thumbs up. And Viper Senior, good evening, fellow patriots. Where we go one, we go all. Rumble 3 tonight. Thank you in advance for your content and devotion. You're welcome. I'm glad you've joined us tonight, Viper Senior. I appreciate that very much. Okay, Debbie BS said thumbs up number 5. And she says thank you. So thank you too. And you're welcome. All right. What a great start. Okay, Dan Bongino, they're a danger to you and your family, episode 2553. Okay, well, let's check that out and see what that's all about.
I do want to cover this quickly because I have a lot of direct, obvious working experience with acting attorney general. Hopefully he's confirmed, soon to be Attorney General Todd Blanche, up on the Hill today in the confirmation hearing. Of course, the Democrats are just going to bring up all kinds of bullshit because they just don't like the results. Folks, I am never going to stop being a results guy. You want me to get into the emotion? You can be emotional about issues, but I'm not going to be dissuaded from results by emotion. I'm never going to do that's what the left does. Coexist, tolerance, except when it comes to the Jews and Asians that you discriminate against in college applications. They're full of shit. I'm not going to do that. I'm a results guy. And I'm seeing this now too. Well, I've been seeing it for a while with the doomers and the grifters, but folks, it pains me to say this, and it's not you, because I read the chat and I get your emails and your DMs and stuff. I talk to a lot of folks out there. The obsession with just instant gratification over long-term results is starting to filter into the mainstream of the party. And I think it's a mistake because the best results are the ones that are done correctly and take time. I want to show you what I mean. There's going to be pros and cons, people who like Todd Blanche for Attorney General, people who don't. I'm just going to tell you results-wise. I was there working with him when he was the DAG, the Deputy Attorney General. And honestly, the DAG runs most of the Justice Department. Not that the Attorney General is an important position, clearly. But Todd ran the place for the first year I was there in the Trump administration with the Bureau. The results on the border, the historic crime drops, the public corruption cases, the Antifa case, the BLM case, the SPLC case, the Fulton County, Georgia ongoing case, the ongoing cases in the grand conspiracy, the reforms, all of the, United States attorneys who he didn't think were constitutionalists, who they let go and pushed out the door. All of those reforms, all of the changes you're seeing on firearms regulations at ATF, he was the one who pushed through a lot of those. And I think he's the best choice for what it's worth. I do. And I'm just hoping they don't make a spectacle out of this thing today because the American people would love to hear what he has to say. Now, having said that, folks, I don't fall for propaganda. I'm sorry. I listen to it. I take it in. I digest it. I try to sift through it. I use it in the show, exposing it, the left-wing propaganda. And I show you, like, this is propaganda versus results. One of the things I've seen online, and I don't know if it's a paid campaign or not, but I want you to just focus on results for a second. I want to prove to you right now what you're hearing is bullshit. Is you see a bunch of people out there going like, the Trump administration has given up on mass deportations of illegals. Ladies and gentlemen, that is just completely, totally inaccurate. It's just not true. Like, you can believe it if you choose to be upset. I mean, I can't tell you what to believe or not. I'm just telling you, believing in something not worth than believing in because it's not true. There was a slight dip in the number of deportations that is now back up to record numbers. It is not because of the administration, Steve Miller, the Attorney General, Tom Homan, the border czar, because they have any less desire to rid the country of people here illegally breaking the law. It had a lot to do with the Democrat-enforced government shutdown. Now the numbers are back to record numbers where they have been before. So again, you can say all you want if you want to destroy the Trump administration. Well, they've lost focus on mass deportation. It's just not true. We saw this when we were at the Bureau for the first year. We'd see these things about, and you'd be like, that's not, I don't know what you're talking about. That was the best year they've ever had. Like, did you just make this up? And a lot of people fell for it. Here's Tom Homan. I mean, if there's anyone you're going to trust on this issue, no one knows the border better than him. Dispelling these myths that they've somehow lost focus on mass deportations. It's just not true. Check this out.
Will this change on vehicle stops lower the rate of deportation during your list?
No. You know what? Let me address that for me. I'm sick and tired of reading about how the administration has lost their guts with, mass deportations. And do you know, June, last month, ICE arrested more aliens than any month in the history of the agency. So, people say ICE is not serious about this job. Last month, the most aliens arrested in the history of the agency, more than last year, more than when you had the FBI, ATF, DEA, Border Patrol, ICE all out there. ICE by themselves, with their 287G partners, had the most arrests in history of the agency. Now, were numbers down for a few months? Yeah. Why? Because the department was shut down, right? Agents weren't getting overtime paid. They weren't getting travel. I mean, the travel cards were maxed out, so they couldn't travel to operations. The targeting wasn't being funded like it should have been. So the department was shut down. So of course the numbers are shut down.
Again, it's only because I really do. To the men out there, the manpanions, the women out there, love you all. I really just appreciate the truth. What do I say all the time? Don't fall in love with people or politicians. Fall in love with results. Tom Homan has never been known as a bullshitter. When there's an issue they have to fix, he goes out and fixes it. If he has to work with a Democrat mayor to get a result, he's going to do it, even though it may not be the popular thing. but he's not going to lie to you about stuff. Folks, I just bring this up not to get into a big prolonged discussion about deportations today at the beginning of the show. It is super important. But I bring it up to show you that when you start sifting through the propaganda and bullshit, a lot of paid campaigns to doom and gloom the administration so you don't show up and vote. Some of it, candidly, is just, disgruntled people who just don't like the Trump administration. Maybe they lost in a primary to him or whatever. It's just bullshit. Go look up what Tom Homan just said. They didn't lose interest in mass deportations. I've worked personally with both of these guys. Not as much with Tom. I typically dealt with my DHS counterparts and Steve Miller on this. If you think Steve Miller and the Trump administration have lost focus on mass deportations, I'm sorry. Please put the crack pipe down. Put it down. Crack is whack. It's not good for you. It's really bad. You could die. Really ugly deaths. Just don't do it. Where's the Michael Jordan? Freaking fly. Imagine these flies follow us from the old house. Remember that? Where's the Michael Jordan? Stop
it. Get some help.
Please, just get some help. It's just not true. Why waste your time burning any energy on something that's total bullshit? Okay, moving on. Because the fight is real. The fight against the Democrat, socialist, communist, tyrant, oligarchs, starvation specialists, mass murderers, because that's what communists are, is real. And it's here now. So if we think about it, right? If we have 10 units of energy to burn in a day, whatever, your soul has 10 units of energy. Do you want to waste a single unit of energy on a talking point against the Trump administration? It turns out it's not even real. Why would you do that? This came up the other day. Something happened, and I was chatting with Jasmine and Paula, and we were like, I got all this energy to burn. Do we really want to waste any time on this? And everyone unanimously was like, no, we don't, because it's just stupid. Let's just move it. That's this thing. Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson has been pretty clear about the threat we're dealing with. Listen, man, again, I know people have beefs with politicians, and that's cool. That's what we do. It's a republic. We argue about politicians all the time. But there's no doubt that members of Congress, the good ones right now, on the Republican side, understand the gravity of the threat. That's why I titled the show today, "They're a Danger to You and Your Family." It's because of this clip. We need more of this. The Republican Party out there, the leadership, the people with microphones, even if you're not in leadership, you're like a John Kennedy on the Senate side who does speak pretty clearly, but is box all the time. We need to speak clearly about this threat from these commies. There's no more dicking around, beating around the bush. We need to speak clearly, just like he did yesterday. Here's where I got the title for today's show, because he's 100% correct. Check this out.
To remove the carceral state, they said. No prisons. They don't want to fund the police. This is not a game. Everybody needs to understand these crazy little mini Mamdanis who are popping up all around the country. They are a danger to you and your family. This is not a game. If they promise you free stuff, there is far more beneath those promises that even some of these people do not understand themselves. And so we are here as the Republican Party to stand on the founding principles of the greatest nation in the history of the world. It is our duty to do that.
Folks, again, I appreciate results. Don't fall in love with politicians. However, I respect the fact that he's willing to speak so clearly on this issue. And I just hope more Republicans with microphones who are out there are speaking in these exact same terms. You don't need PhD, fake experts on political science to tell you that communism leads to death, destruction, murder, starvation, and economic depravity. You don't need, all you need is freaking ChatGPT or Grok. You can look it up. I said this last night, talking to Sean on the Fox program last night. If you want to know what living under socialism looks like, do yourself a favor. If you're really curious, you should be, correct? If you're a Democrat who's not a progressive liberal, but a mainstream Democrat, but is getting ready to fall for this socialist bullshit, there's an example out there of what it looks like to live under the system you may fall for, socialism. You can go ask any Cuban refugee in South Florida. Just go find someone. Friend them on Facebook or whatever. DM them on X. Hey, I saw your avatar. It says you're a refugee from communist Cuba. What was that like? You could ask him. The guy who used to cut my hair, Robert, is a refugee from Cuba. You got to hear his stories. They're horrendous. I got to tell you, they were like depressing. Sometimes I'd be getting a haircut. I'd be in a good mood. I'd leave in a bad mood. These stories are depressing. You could ask them. It's called homework. If you want to know what it's like to, build a coffee table out of like a piece of tree wood, you would probably ask a carpenter, correct? Like, what is that like? You wouldn't ask the PhD in woodworking who's never built a table in their lives, but you won't do that.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. And, he's right. You cannot get the truth from the mainstream media and some of these hacks out there that just make this shit up as they go along. It's unbelievable. Now, if they would report on the truth, but that's not in their agenda, if they would report on the truth, they would get far more viewers. Talk about the crime in the streets, the crimes that illegal aliens commit, the politicians that shut down the police department or defund the police department in certain ways so they have less people on patrol. It's unbelievable. There were a couple more people shot trying to run down ICE agents. Of course, that's the most horrible thing in the world. Is it? Okay, if you got a car coming at you and you're an officer with a weapon, what are you going to do to stop that car? You're not going to shoot the tires. I've heard that. Shoot the tires. Yeah, well, okay, you can still drive a car with flat tires. You can still hit somebody with flat tires. You can still have a pretty good rate of speed with flat tires and run someone over. You need to eliminate the threat. Now, I've been around for a while, but when I was a kid, if you ran from a cop, you were liable to get shot. Because that cop thought, okay, well, if you're running from me, then you've got something to hide. Did you kill someone? Did you rape someone? Did you batter someone? And am I going to let you go so you can do it again to someone else? No. You got shot if you ran from the police. Okay? Now it's okay to drive your car at the police, I guess. It's unfreaking believable. Okay? And Representative Johnson was correct. These people are destroying the cities they're supposed to be governing. I saw a report today. Record high rents in New York after Mandami. Boy, just keep voting Democrat though, okay? And then those people will leave and go someplace else and probably be stupid enough to turn that someplace else that they move to blue so they can destroy that town or city as well. All right, let me jump on the Rumble link now that I got that off my chest and show you this video does come from the Dan Bongino show. This is the video I shared with you. I'm going to include this in my daily news wrap-up if you want to watch more of it. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same for me, and I hope you give me a chat. There, I said it. All right, let's see here. Okay, we got, Susie Poll 2016 joined us with Debbie BS, Viper Senior, and Glow. So let's move on here. We've got more information to cover. Black Conservative Perspective CNBC host stunned as billionaire checks his Trump derangement, then admits he was wrong live on air. Okay, well, let's check that out and see what that's all about. All right. Sorry, folks. I'm sorry about that. I got the message in the chat that there was no sound, and I checked it out here, and yeah, there's no sound. Unbelievable. I cannot believe this. Let me refresh. Let me refresh Rumble, and we'll get this set up.
Way to think about our current political climate in the United States is we are led by a transcendent political athlete.
Transcendent how?
Donald Trump is the most effective and capable political athlete we have ever seen. Why? He understands how to connect at the one-on-one level. He understands retail politics better than, frankly, anybody. And you can just see this if you go to a rally, the way that he can connect with individual people. He has an affability that's very disarming. And yet, because of his business acumen, he has a way of negotiating that I think is just very hard for the learned non-business person to compete with. You know, there's that very famous Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Mhm.
I think the president has an incredible ability to negotiate. Howard Lutnick has an incredible ability to negotiate. Scott Bessent has an ability to negotiate because of their grounding in business. And when you apply it to the realm of politics, I think it has some very consequential outcomes.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about some good, or what I would say decent economic news, which is that the latest inflation report came back good compared to where analysts expected, because as we already know, due to the conflict with Iran and the speculation in the oil markets, we have experienced an increase in gas prices. However, gas prices have been going back down. We're going to see what oil prices do because the conflict appears to be back on, at least for now, right? We're going to see how long that lasts. But hey, we had a good CPI report, right? We had some good news that is going back down. And I think at this point, if this conflict resolves sooner rather than later, then this could be good news for the administration when it comes to getting the economy back on track.
Here we go. This is our June release of the Consumer Price Index, expecting a headline number to be negative 0.1%. This is 4 times more negative, minus 0.4%. That would be the biggest negative drop that we've seen since 4/20, since basically COVID timing, which really affected, of course, all of the inflation data points. So that goes back, basically 6-year low. And if we look at the CPI month over month on the core, also under expectations, comes in at goose egg, 0. 0 would be the smallest amount. It would equal Jan of 21. To find a smaller change or a more negative change, or minus 0.1%, that's May of 2020. And if we look at the year-over-year numbers, year-over-year headline, 3.5, 0.3 less than expected, much less than the 4.2 in the rearview mirror. That would be the lightest since March of this year when it was 3.3. Year-over-year core, 2.6, 0.2 less than expectations, 0.3 less than the rearview mirror. 2.6 equals March. 2.5 brings you to February of this year.
It's sure energy prices have come down a lot, but everything else is going down too. And I think that's why, if you look at Bloomberg, they surveyed 67 economists, and 67 economists got it wrong because they didn't understand that it wasn't just about energy. It's about all these other things that President Trump is doing to cut costs.
Big thing Americans obviously care about are gas prices, especially during the summertime. If we can pull up this AAA chart showing gas prices right now, they're down from what they were about a month ago, but they're still significantly higher than they were this time 1 year ago. Obviously, the war in Iran is throwing a wrench into this. As long as that conflict is going on, should Americans expect these prices to just basically keep seesawing?
Well, I think that one of the ways you should think about it is that oil prices were up almost at $150 a barrel at the peak of the conflict, and now they're low 80s today, and they were in the 60s and 70s just a week ago. So what happens is they take the oil, they move it to the refinery, and then they turn it into gasoline. So there's a whole bunch of gasoline deflation on the way. And even with the renewed conflict, if you look at what oil prices are today, they're about half of what they were in the peak.
Yeah. So again, the good news is that oil prices are going down and they don't seem to respond as much as they have been responding, at least at the beginning of this conflict. Remember, they said that oil is going to get up to $200, $250 a barrel, right? This is what the doomer said, but that never happened. I think what is happening is that the markets are realizing that, okay, first and foremost, they're developing alternatives in regards to getting oil to the market, right? And countries are slowly but surely becoming less reliant on the Strait of Hormuz. And this is why I feel like Iran continuing to get upset and get mad about the fact that we are allowing ships to cross the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, and that's essentially why this conflict kicked off again, is because Iran got upset that we were using our Navy to escort ships across the Strait of Hormuz through the Omani territorial waters. Okay, they didn't like that because basically we found a way around forcing ships to go towards the coast of Iran. So they got mad, they got upset, they started shooting the ships because we're not going to let them control the strait, right? It's just not going to happen. Okay, and I think that the markets are basically priced in the fact that somehow, some way, we're going to keep that strait open, and there are also alternatives that are being actively developed in order to get around this. So I think that Iran really is just kind of trying to use leverage that they really don't have, and they're not going to have in the long term, and they're just accelerating losing the leverage, the little leverage that they do have, because they're obsessed with trying to control or toll the Strait of Hormuz, which is not going to happen. We're not going to let it happen. It's never going to happen. And again, I think that the markets are pricing that in. So I think the good thing is this, is that we should not see the same type of spikes that we saw before. Okay. However, we may see some spikes depending on how long this current conflict, the latest strikes last. Okay. We don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I know. Who knows, right? I'm just saying the good news is that we're getting some relief. Okay. And the president is essentially set in his belief that he doesn't want Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, right? And that seems to be something that he is very, very, very dead set on trying to accomplish. And I believe that this goes along with his clear long-term approach to this administration, right? Not making decisions based off, short-term gain, right? Or short-term popularity, saying, hey, I'm going to do things that may seem controversial now, that may hurt a little bit up front, but in the long term, it's going to turn out to be the right decision, right? And I think that is how this administration is currently governing, right? It is one of my favorite things about this administration, and very few people are willing to admit that we've actually been lied to about this administration, and Trump has been right on a lot of things, okay? But there is one person who used to be a Trump hater that went on CNBC and basically admitted that, yeah, the president actually has been right on a lot of things, and I've been wrong. And that we do need to have some patience when you talk about the president and what he's doing, because again, he is doing a lot of good things. Okay. And that was Chamath, the billionaire investor. He went on CNBC and basically called out one of the hosts for his Trump derangement. And again, talked about how he himself was wrong about Trump. And again, how he believed the lies from the media, because again, we have been lied to a lot about this administration. Take a look.
You said I was 100% right on climate change.
You're 100% right on climate change.
What about Trump?
Oh my.
You're 100% right on Trump. He's fantastic.
Great person?
Unbelievable person. Very smart, on top of it. Open-minded.
Great president?
Great president so far.
You think you got bad mail from the SPAC stuff? What's your trigger?
I actually look.
The TDS you can cut.
You know what's so funny? I mean, like, people can be lazy and reductive. There's enough people that I hear that are lazy and reductive, and they're going to end up where they're supposed to end up, in a little cul-de-sac of their own making. The reality is that most of us were lied to by the media about President Trump. And if you just go back to the source material, you should take away two things. One, he didn't say half the things he said. And two, why did these other people just fabricate what they wanted to say so that they could essentially assassinate his character? I think that that second thing is completely unacceptable in America, and there's still been no repercussions, really. I took the time to learn about it. I admitted where, the way that I met him was I admitted on the pod, which, has millions of viewers. And I said, I got it totally wrong. Because I went and I watched Charlottesville. And the first person to call me?
Who was it?
President Trump. And I got to know him. And I put the phone down. I called my wife and I said, we got it totally, totally wrong. We were lied to. And then I got to know him. And he is fantastic.
Okay, let me ask you.
On the broad-based things that he did, I think that he has been way more right than wrong.
Where do you land on the war?
Wait, can I just say one more thing?
The war in Iran.
The most important thing that got me to see his point of view is he was completely binary on there cannot be nuclear war. And what's so interesting about, like Warren Buffett in that last segment, who, by the way, should give all of his money if he wants to give it away to Trump accounts. I'm just going to say that. Way better for the man who basically told all of us to buy an index fund. Here, you can literally gift 140 billion in index funds. If you ask Buffett, Buffett would also say the same thing. He and Munger used to say in their letters, there's only one risk for humanity, nuclear war.
Right.
And so when you have a madman country that is attempting to destabilize the ability for all of us just to live our lives, I think he was pulled into a situation he didn't want to be in because he believed strongly in no nuclear weapons. I support that because I think everybody is forgetting the chaos that kind of thing can create in the world. Now, can I just...
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. A little more than halfway through this video, but I do need to have some more information that I want to cover. This will be in my daily news wrap-up, so you'll get to see the rest of that. In the meantime, let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Black Conservative Perspective. Man, he puts out some good stuff. This is a video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and see what Greg Hunter, the USA Watchdog, has to say about God's last warning with Dinesh D'Souza. Great information. I followed both of these guys for a long time. Dinesh D'Souza used to work for Ronald Reagan.
I'm Greg Hunter.
Now, I mean, he wasn't a cabinet member. He was a staffer, but he's been around for a while, but he used to work for Ronald Reagan. So he's conservative from way back.
Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. I have a brand new guest on. He was on 10 years ago. I haven't had him on, but he's a great guy, award-winning filmmaker, best-selling author, out with a new book called The Stones Cry Out. And it's about how biblical archaeology, prophecy, and the last days, and basically the stuff they're digging up proves the Bible is absolutely accurate and not some work of myth, and that God is real and Jesus is real. Let's bring him on, Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, thanks for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We're going to get to the book in just a second, which is fascinating because the proof, people, the Bible's a myth. No, it's not. But I want to talk about this Democrat socialist or Democrat communist of America. You've got to have something to talk about this. Isn't this a good versus evil, lamb versus dragon, Jesus versus Satan? Isn't that what this is about?
Democratic socialism is a form of socialism, and socialism gets its inspiration from Karl Marx, who was a resolute atheist and who wanted to create a kind of new type of human being different from the one that God created. That's why it's the goal of every communist society. They keep talking about like the new man. Now, their new man, so-called, is generally a monster, and the people in the society tend to become slaves or exploited people. We see this in Cuba, in Venezuela. Of course, we saw it in the old Soviet Union. But it is really amazing that after a record of uninterrupted failure, which is to say that socialism has the worst record of any human institution since slavery, and yet it's back. Socialism is back. I mean, imagine if somebody were to say about slavery something like, oh, well, it's been tried, but it hasn't been done the right way. We want to do it right this time. People would consider this to be preposterous. And yet this is exactly what people say about socialism and sort of new forms of the application of Marxist ideas.
Do you think they're going to be? I had Dr. Jerome Corsi on. He says, listen, a Harvard PhD, political science, back when that meant something. And he says they cannot cheat. They cannot win without massive cheating. They just can't do it. They can't win without cheating. And, you know, now you have Harmeet Dillon is going in with, observers, and they are trying. They got 29 states fighting them on the voter rolls. Do you think they're going to be able to pull off another cheat for this midterm election? Or do you think, and according to Jerome Corsi, Trump's going to stop them? Or do you think they're going to be able to stop them from cheating? What do you think your prognosis is for this election?
Well, this is a topic I know a lot about, and I've made a film about. And, you know, the interesting thing is that there are two forms of cheating, legal and illegal. And that may seem like an odd thing to say, but there are legal forms of cheating that certain states, many states, blue states, have institutionalized. They have bad voter rolls. They allow votes to come in that are counted after election day. They allow people to drop off votes for other people, so-called ballot harvesting. They collect votes at homeless shelters and among, nursing homes, where it seems very unclear whether the homeless people are actually voting or somebody else is filling out the ballot. And in some other places, this is allowed. So is it cheating? Yes. But at the same time, it has been legalized. And then on top of that, we have all the illegal forms of cheating. So unfortunately, our elections are not secure. Remember when they said that the 2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history? Nothing could be further from the truth.
Do you think they're going to be able to pull off their legal cheating as opposed to illegal cheating? I mean, they just found in Detroit 20-something thousand votes that were cast that were illegal. Is that enough?
This is where, this is where it's so important for Republicans who have the ability to do this to pass voter ID, which is the Save America Act. And right now that act is being held up by one man, and it's John Thune, the head of the Senate. He doesn't want to override the filibuster. And if you don't override the filibuster, we need 60 votes, which we don't have. And so the legislation is essentially held up.
I just want to know what handicap this. Do you think they're going to pull it off? Do you think they're going to gain the seats they need to start impeachment proceedings and, basically go after the president?
The economic situation is getting better. I think it's starting to look better for the Republicans. And so at one time, it looked pretty clear the Democrats would win the House and had a good chance to win the Senate. I think as of now, their Senate hopes are evaporating. I don't think that there's a good chance for them to take the Senate at all. The Senate is probably going to stay in Republicans' hands. The House, as of now, is kind of a toss-up. And I'm hopeful that over the next couple of months, the Republican picture will improve so that Republicans will, even if narrowly, hold the House and avoid the kind of shenanigans the Democrats will, in fact, try if they're able to take the House.
One of the things that I love about your filmmaking is there's always facts in there that I didn't know that. With your election fraud films or film that you know a lot about, what would be, if you were able to just change something, what would be the one thing you would change in the elections right now? That if Donald Trump was listening, you'd say, here's what the one thing I would change, even without the SAVE Act, what would you do?
Clean up the voter rolls, because look, we live in a country where, let's say you were to pack up and move to another state. Right away, all the key agencies, state agencies, federal agencies find out about it, right? The DMV knows pretty quickly that you've moved. The post office knows. The tax people know. And so the records are immediately updated. But you know who doesn't know? The state that you move out of doesn't take you off the voter rolls. And so you move somewhere else, and now you go on the voter rolls of that state. And this has been happening for years and decades. So can you imagine the number of people who are on the voter? And this is only just for moving. There are many other ways to get on or off voter rolls. The point I'm getting at is that our voter rolls are are obsolete. They are padded with people who are no longer alive or no longer live in that state, and this allows opportunities for all kinds of fraud. Now, the Democrats in the blue states always fight when you want to clean up the voter rolls. They act like that's some sort of a voter suppression, but the reason that they fight against it is because they are the party of cheating.
Is this why they have the Department of Justice is trying to get a look at 29 different states' voter rolls? And man, they are fighting tooth and nail. If they have to clean up their voter rolls, would they lose significant seats in the House and the Senate? If they had to actually clean up their voter rolls and only vote the people that are legally able to vote, would they lose the House and Senate even worse?
No question about it. They would lose a lot of the close races that go their way because the cheating supplies that critical margin. So, and then there are, by the way, other benefits that Democrats get. For example, Democratic states were overcounted in the last census. And so they have greater congressional apportionment than they should have. Now, this needs to be corrected, but it doesn't look like it can be corrected till 2030. And so, you've got all of this built-in unfairness in the system. It's almost like taking part in an Olympics where the rules have been set up in such a way that some of the runners get to start 3 or 4 yards ahead, and then they call it a fair race, even though it's quite obviously not.
Let's go and move on to your book, which I find fascinating because a lot of people are not believers. And you look at, some of the books that have been written, which is The Case for Christ, which is Lee Strobel, in Romans 1:21 and 21 and 22, it says they knew God, but they glorified him not, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, or in the Greek term, it's moranis, which is moron. In other words, God's calling people that don't believe him morons. And then here you have your book, The Stones Cry Out. What you're doing is saying, hey, folks, you're a moron if you don't believe that God is real and Jesus is real. And the archaeological record proves it. Tell me about that. Is that right?
Yeah, for many centuries, the Bible, most of it, had to be taken exclusively on faith for the simple reason that you couldn't historically or archaeologically prove it. So if you just take a figure like King David, a very important figure in the Old Testament, King David is a dominant figure along with Moses and Abraham. This is the key guy in the Old Testament. And yet, prior to 1990, if somebody were to say to you, can you prove to me, not using the Bible, that King David existed, that he was the king of Israel, and that he had a kingdom, and that he had a palace? Can you prove these things to me? You wouldn't be able to do it. So the point I'm making here is this, that thanks to the discoveries of biblical archaeology, now biblical archaeology is more than 100 years old, but the findings have been even greater in the second half of the 20th century and greatest in the last 25 years. In other words, in the early part of this century. And so you have dozens, in fact, hundreds of artifacts that have come out of the ground that have taken figures and events in the Bible, big and small, including some guys who just make cameo appearances in the Bible, people that the ordinary, even educated person or even pastor or even scholar has never heard of, or are, as I say, they're just mentioned once or twice in the Bible. The royal steward to an Old Testament king, for example. And these guys are now being validated by biblical archaeology. In other words, what previously had to be taken on faith can now be seen to be a matter of fact.
Oh man, this is some great stuff. Okay, I'm about 12 minutes into this video. This is a 36-minute video. Great stuff. And, I have to agree with Dinesh, and you've heard me harping about this for as long as you've been listening to me. If the elections were cleaned up, the Democrats wouldn't have a chance of regaining control of the House or the Senate because they are so corrupt. I'm hoping, I'm praying that Donald Trump will do something to prevent the elections, or at least hold them back from all the corruption and scam that that's been going on. But at any rate, I'm going to move on from here, and this will be in my daily news wrap up. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. This is the video I shared with you with Dinesh D'Souza, giving him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Alrighty, let me slide down here and see what Wendy Bell has to say. They are terrified. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. They're not terrified enough to try to do something stupid like harm someone or assassinate someone. Let's check it out.
I don't know, 40 years, maybe even longer. Complacent. And review period of time. I think it must be under God.
There we go.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. You know, I think it must be innate, it must be human nature that if you have gotten away with something for a really long period of time, you get kind of sloppy, right? You don't update the playbook. You don't go back and review all of the dots, all of the zeros, all of the dollar signs. You get complacent. You become lazy. And that's pretty much how our government has been for the past, I don't know, 40 years, maybe even longer, where you have a lot of dirty actors who are used to just doing whatever they want, getting in bed with whomever and whatever special interest behooves them, not you, and running for re-election, which is almost always guaranteed once you make it into that inner sanctum of Capitol Hill. But there's something dirty and dangerous and psychological that happens once you walk through those doors of the people's house, or you walk into the Senate. And for some reason, there is a vast number of our elected representatives who become corrupted, co-opted, controlled by money, by special interests, by the blackmail and the bribery apparatus that is our government. And they walk a very dark, dirty path. And that becomes the norm. And the longer they travel this path, the farther away you are, the farther away the traditional American values, which are not complicated at all, are, the farther away everything that's common sense and good seems to be. I think we have a lot of people in those throes right now who are realizing that at some point, even though they suspected it long ago, someday this isn't going to work anymore. Someday somebody's going to catch on to us. Someday it's going to be a bridge too far. It's going to be a dollar ask too great. It's going to be a coincidence too unbelievable. And somebody's going to poke holes in it. Ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't your media. It was conservatives. It was conservatives, independents, people like you and like me who looked around and saw what was going on and talked about it. And we were shut down. We were silenced. We were ridiculed. We were fired. We were kicked off the airwaves. We were demonetized. We were deplatformed. We were vilified. And we were unwavering. Look, I'm not likening this to some revolution like our forefathers who fought against each other in fields so as to prevent the westward expansion of slavery. I'm not here to tell you that we're taking bullets and like, wow, aren't we such heroes? I'm here to tell you we are freaking warriors. And that is why they hate MAGA. They hate the idea that you want to make America great again because they want to break us. They want to bankrupt us. They want to co-opt our children. They want to drive us into the ground because they stay in power and you become their paupers. And that's not the American way. Oh, hell no. And for a long time, we were quiet. A lot of us started making some noise in the 2000s with the Tea Party. A lot of us rebuked people like Mitt Romney, the Cheney family, the Bushes, anything that had to do with Adam Kinzinger or John McCain. We demanded more. We asked a very simple thing of our government. Listen to us because you serve us. And y'all have forgotten that. And we want that back. And we fought. And we dug. And we got involved. And we started doing podcasts. A lot of us breaking away from traditional media. Whether or not we were forced or chose, Carrie Lake bounced from the same job I had. Main anchor at a TV station, evening news, 6 and 11, walked away from a job very few people in this country are privileged to have because she saw what was going on and wanted nothing more to do with it. This is our time. Tomorrow night is for you. You saw the ridiculous of the ballots at the State Farm Arena in Fulton County, Georgia, when they freaking told you it was the safest, most secure election ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I can pull 2 counties from the 67 that make up the Commonwealth of the land before time, which is what I call Pennsylvania. And I could find you enough anomalous, or I could say discrepancy votes that would have flipped that election back to President Trump. 2 counties out of 67. The oddities, the things that don't add up, the people who don't exist, the counties that counted more ballots than there are registered voters, the dead people, the aliens. How many more which ways do we need to see it? This is it. This is that point. This is that line in the sand. This is that moment. And President Trump and his team have been gathering the evidence since, I dare say, 2020, period. What did he do in the off season? Did President Trump, in between his 2 terms, golf a lot? Did he hang out a lot? Did you see him gallivanting around the world? Did you see him and Melania sipping margaritas somewhere on a beach, kicking up their feet, enjoying the good life, which they had every reason and right to enjoy? No. He was building the case. He was getting the team. He was planning the cabinet. He was proposing the agenda. He was making a list. He was gathering the data, collecting all of this stuff that he needed. And then he walked out into the line of fire. And they tried to take him down with 4 criminal indictments and a bunch of bullets. Thank God they missed. Tomorrow is for you. Tomorrow is your vindication. Tomorrow is your reward, hopefully, God willing, for seeing through the garbage, for asking the critical questions, for not believing the answers, because damn it, at some point, you just freaking have been lied to too much. Tomorrow is what the deep state fears more than anything else right now. They can lie to you all day long. They can say safe and secure. They can say Trump is obsessed. He's obsessed. We has to have won. He's crazy. No, he's a man who did win, who realizes he can't change the history books, but he can change the course of America's trajectory. And that, my friends, is what scares the dark and the dirty and the dangerous the most. Your knowledge. This is why they say they hate those MAGA extremists. This is why we have a divide in this country. Part of us are willing to think critically, and the other are sheep. Now, if you're a sheep, you have an opportunity. Tomorrow, pick your head up out of the grass, and at 9 o'clock, pay attention to what the president presents. Pay attention to the evidence that he drops, because it will be just the beginning of what I believe is the culmination of more than 10 years of data collection. This will be better than any poll. It will be stronger than any survey, and it will lay the case on the table to the American people. And then after that, if the sheep continue grazing, there's going to be a very short ride to slaughter. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, this is how Democrats got Kamala Harris. And now it seems like they're stuck with her. After all of this stuff, all of the lies, the cheats, all this stuff, right? You got to have a leader. Who's the leader? Kamala Harris. Oh my gosh. Get your bread, guys, because I'm serving up a vat of gravy. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All righty, there you have it, folks. Now, I will try to share that Donald Trump's remarks tomorrow. If it starts at 9 o'clock, I start my podcast a little bit later than that, but I will try to get that in to my playlist tomorrow night so you guys can hear that. But let's get up here and see what Wendy
How
has
are you guys?
to say here.
Tea.
Here we go.
Ho, 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 it's magic,
So as I alluded in the break before, or in the segment before, Kamala Harris is polling above everybody else about 12 points. Think about that. The woman who could not sit down for an interview for the Democratic Party. The woman who was number 2 in line to the presidency. The woman who was the border czar. The woman who could not speak save for verbal spaghetti is the de facto leader now for 2028 for the Democratic Party. That tells you everything. This is what happens when you don't freshen up your playbook. This is what happens when you're used to getting away with everything for always. This is what happens when you've been dark for a long time and you believe you'll never get hit by the light. Kamala Harris is no leader. They're screwed. And I love every friggin' moment of it. So yesterday in the Oval Office, the president confirmed that what he's going to be talking about tomorrow, as of course, NBC leaked it thanks to Trump administration inside leakers, ostensibly, gave it to NBC, and MSNBC printed it and had it on in Morning Joe, etc., that Trump is going to be talking about the election, blah, 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 and he's going to be dropping all this fake news, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, really? See, people who don't cheat don't have to worry about investigations. People who do not break the law have no problem opening up the warehouse to show investigators the boxes. People who follow the rules are offended by allegations of malfeasance and fraud. And they are falling over themselves, eager to cooperate with law enforcement so as to exonerate their good name. People who are none of those things have to kick into overdrive to run counter narratives and propagandize people and set up the story that Trump's going to come out with some election fraud stuff. But he's obsessed. He's crazy. You know he's crazy. Say it with me. And we're just like, no, we've kind of been waiting for this. I'm looking forward to it. This is the moment when a reporter asks him, Trump announcing the upcoming speech Monday as the war with Iran escalated, yada, yada. I really am not interested in hearing about the war in Iran. And this young reporter, Cara Castanueva, from Lindell TV, again, one of these independent journalists who has changed the trajectory of news. And she asks him flat out, hey, what are you going to be talking about tomorrow? I want you to hear what he said, because this is what triggered everybody yesterday to lose their ever-loving minds.
It's really big news. It's really, really big news. And our country has to shape up. But that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday is it doesn't get bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it's going to be a very big announcement. Yeah.
It doesn't get bigger because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. Now, this is going to be an interesting task. You know how they're going to go after Fauci, not for his role in creating a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic that killed at a minimum 15 million people. I mean, we'd love to see him quartered for that. They're going to go at him for something different, like perjury, like lying under oath, that is a felony. They're going to come at him with some other strategy. The whole issue about presenting the case about what happened in 2020 isn't to say that the people who allegedly won weren't certified. It's that the process of it was invaded, and therefore the results are not valid. That doesn't mean that Joe Biden on paper, and as was widely reported by the news, it doesn't say that Joe Biden was not president of the United States. We witnessed that. But what's going to be exposed is the corruption of the system that allowed a lot of bogosity to affect the election results. That has to change. And I think President Trump has this great opportunity to not sing the sour grapes of a stolen election, but rather to illuminate the many ways in which anomalies happened that cannot happen if we are ever to trust our elections again. And what he wants is very basic. And the Democrats don't want it because the Democrats need to cheat to stay in power, period. Voter ID, citizenship, same-day voting, no paper ballots. Bingo. Or rather, paper ballots. No electronic voting. Did you guys know that in Fulton County, Georgia, as Tulsi Gabbard, as then Director of National Intelligence, seized something like 500 and some odd boxes of these ballots, right? All of the images, all of the machines, all of the everything that was supposed to be saved. There were 6.8 million absentee ballots that were sent out to people to use. 6.8 million that were not requested, and that people could deposit those in all of a sudden these new drop boxes and these new mobile vans driving by. Hey, I'll drive by and pick up your ballot for you. Everything that happened under the guise of that pandemic and keeping us all safe from contracting that virus. It was the ultimate open door to steal, to lie, to unseat conservatives, to put in Democrats. How's it possible that Georgia has 9 Republican state representatives, right? 9 of the 15 are Republicans. We have 2 U.S. senators who are Democrats. That's something that we're going to talk about today because Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff are sweating. When we come back, John Solomon is working for the Trump administration. What he said yesterday about tomorrow next.
All right. Great information. Okay. So, I always had a drink of water. You know that whatever Donald Trump says, the mainstream media is just going to just go berserk and lie through their teeth. You know that. Donald Trump, they've been working on this for years. They've got all their ducks in a row, I think. So I'm not sure what they're going to say. But whatever, I guarantee you, whatever they say, the mainstream media will come up with, these experts that want to save their democracy. Well, just discard it. Oh, they don't have any proof. Where's the proof? Those are all allegations. All right. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I've given her a thumbs up. I'm following her channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, folks. Let's see here. I've got 24 people watching right now. Surely there's someone out there that's watching that hasn't given me a chat. If you could just put a hi in the chat box right here. Hi or bye or hello or you stink or whatever. Just a thumbs up, anything, or a thumbs down. I don't care. Just give me a chat. I'd appreciate it. All right, let me copy the chats into a comment. Boy, we got a lot of them tonight. Here we go. Oops, I passed it up. There we go. So this is how you make a comment. You just go down here to this little comment box, put some information in there, and click the comment, and whoo, there it goes. Oh, it's amazing. It's kind of like magic, really. All right, these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer. I've got the links to the videos in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel in case you want to check out more information that they might have. Also, these videos that I've shared with you are videos that I've posted on moretech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Here's the one from USA Watchdog with Dinesh D'Souza. Here's the one from Wendy Bell Radio. Also, here's the one from Dan Bongino and Black Conservative Perspective, and tons of other information here, folks. You know, this is your one-stop shop for information that you're not going to get from the mainstream media. No nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. The link to moretech.com is in the description box. It's a free site. I don't ask for your name. I don't ask for your email address. I don't drop cookies on your computer or have a bunch of ads popping up in your face. You're pretty much anonymous when you come here, but you can get a boatload of information that you're not going to get anyplace else. So please pay me a visit. I don't make any money off of it. I'm doing it as a public service, I guess. But I'd like to share all of this information with you, but I just don't have the time to do so, and that's why I put together my Mertech Daily News Wrap-Up playlist. It says I have 24 videos in here. I've got Wendy Bell Radio, Dan Bongino Show, Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog, We the People News, X22 Report, On the Fringe, Steve Deace, And We Know, Black Conservative Perspective. Okay, I'm going to move that up towards the top. Bongino Report with Vince and a lot more. But as of right now, go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink. And meet me back here, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese. Meet me back here about 15 minutes or so, so I can get this set up in Rumble Studio and we'll get this going for you. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.